Roland Garros is done and dusted, but I want to take a moment and cover some things I didn't get to during the tournament, including the hotly debated women's night match issue, plus the aftermath of Sabalenka's press conference controversy, which has blown up in ways I could have never imagined. I enlisted Myles David to help me break this all down, and Myles has his own podcast, Tuned Into Tennis, and he is a writer for Served on SI Sports Illustrated. He just did an excellent interview with Lindsay Davenport. Make sure you check it out, and also make sure you follow him on all socials and subscribe to his YouTube channel, Myles David. This one is going to be a little bit longer, so I've made it into a podcast form so y'all can listen to this on Spotify or most other podcast platforms. The link for that will be in the bio. So, of course, we're going to delve into Roland Garros, the aftermath. And we were talking before, and I kind of had this sentiment as well, but this actually, we feel like it might actually be the best Roland Garros tournament ever. And I know Myles is not the biggest fan of Roland Garros. He's made that plenty clear online on X and whatnot. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts or early thoughts on why you felt that this Roland Garros stood out from maybe previous year's editions.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hyperbolic and say it was the best ever, because I obviously I have 20 years of watching tennis experience, but of the 20, I feel like I can comfortably say of the 2020s, like this decade that we're currently in, it's definitely been the best one I've been able to watch. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to go to Roland Garros yet. That's still on the bucket list. But as far as fans' perspective and being able to cover it and give content, a lot of that was just very spot on and just kind of easy and intriguing throughout all of the 2 weeks. From match quality, content, broadcasting, all of that, it was probably the most top-notch Roland Garros of the 2020s for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm one to throw around the best ever and stuff. I should probably cut back from doing that. But at least for me, I definitely agree that this is the best that I've watched in my going on 15 years. It's been a while, but I think this is definitely the best one I've seen for sure. And we'll delve into exactly why. But I first want to start off with the winners. First, our ladies winner, Coco Gauff. She claimed her second Slam title, defeating Aryna Sabalenka. Yeah, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this, Myles. Obviously, a great accomplishment, especially with her bouncing back from finals defeats in Madrid and Rome and beating Sabalenka again in a major.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she was the first woman in years to drop the first set in a championship Roland Garros final and come back to win definitely speaks a lot to her character and game out there on the court. My reaction is posted on Instagram, so you can kind of see the match point reaction to Coco Gauff. And might I say, I feel like it's very disingenuous for people that work in tennis to be like, oh, I don't have favorites, or why can't you be impartial? And I'm like, well, I can work at that, but there are certain people that get a better reaction out of you, or you are tied to, or whatever the case may be. Because for us to work in this industry or talk about it and give content, we were a fan first. So Coco Gauff, I'm a fan of, and I appreciate when she wins. And this was a great, thrilling win. So I think this will be one kind of similar to what Serena said. I mean, Coco has years and years ahead of her if health is on her side. Remember when Serena was like that 2015 Roland Garros will be one that she takes with her. This will probably be one that she remembers for quite a while, especially with all the aftermath that has happened afterwards. So it's amazing to go from, or to see Coco Gauff go from the quote unquote one slam wonder that people were kind of putting her in the box because she hadn't been to a Grand Slam final since 2023. And the women's game, they're a couple of one slam wonders. So to see her go from 1 to 2, which is, not everybody has 2 or multiple Grand Slam championships to their credit, is nice. And it was a great moment for women's tennis, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think for me, her actually going all the way and winning the title solidified to me that I think she is top 2 best clay player that we have right now. And I think she's always been there, but she didn't necessarily have a big clay title to back it up. And now she has that. This is her second ever clay title, which is kind of crazy considering how strong she is. But some of that was due to her biggest nemesis, Iga, being better for all these years. And we all know that Coco, she honestly could have won Roland Garros multiple times if it weren't for Swiatek. But even aside from Iga, there was that one year where in 2021 where she lost to Krejcikova. I really think she could have won that one. But I think this year was really just more about the improvements in her ground game. Yes, we can all say Iga had a slump, but Coco has made significant improvements. And we're not really talking about the forehand really at all. If anything, it might be the serve, but the forehand, and it's been really night and day. And I remember when she played Raducanu in Rome, and a fan posted their previous match from the Australian Open in 2023. Like, she was doing I called it the chicken wing forehand. Like, it was not the prettiest sight to see.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's really a solid shot, and that's ultimately why she was able to get it done. And I think also I'm proud of Coco by how she bounced back after her, I'll say, so spring. It wasn't necessarily terrible. She lost round of 16. It wasn't terrible. It could have been worse. She lost.
It wasn't great.
It wasn't great. Yeah, it wasn't great. She lost round of 16 in Indian Wells and Miami. Didn't win a match at all, actually, in the Middle East. So for her to kind of bounce back is a testament to her never say die and always trying to figure things out. And I guess a question for you is, how do you think she'll fare for the remainder of the year as far as results wise and her consistency?
The thing about Coco's results is, I don't want to say that they can be all over the place, because that's not necessarily accurate, but they do come up and down. I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable, or she hasn't given me like a slate of results besides that summer 2023 where she won DC and Cincinnati, the US Open. Outside of that, she's the kind of player that I liken to a little bit of Venus Williams. Like, there are definitely stretches that you can see in their career where they have it all together, but the weaknesses in her game, like the serve and the forehand, I don't know if they'll ever go away. It's just something that she'll kind of have to tinker with and kind of play with as far as confidence. I think the serve and the forehand are barometers of where her like mental focus and confidence is. So it's tough for me to say that like she's going to go on this magnificent run and win 10, 20, 30 matches in a row. I don't necessarily foresee that. Would I love to see it? Absolutely. But I think her game is always going to be centered around, from what we've seen so far, a diligence to kind of get balls back and use the generational legs and athleticism that she has. As long as she has that, and she's obviously healthy, because health goes into a big part of that. And thank God we haven't seen any kind of like long stretch of hers where she's out with the injury, because that would suck for women's tennis and for her, obviously. But as long as she has that on her side, I think she's going to be okay. But I do see where the forehand and the serve and some of the hitches in those shots are just going to rear their ugly head sometimes, because yes, she won Roland Garros, and yes, the past 2 weeks she played some of her greatest tennis. But like you just said, that Doha, Dubai, Indian Wells, Miami stretch, it wasn't pretty. I literally remember watching her struggle against Uchijima at Indian Wells, and like, that is, we're talking about the same woman, and that was March. We're in June. Tennis rolls really quickly, but that's not that much time that has changed. So we'll see what happens when she gets on the grass and when she gets back to North American hard courts. But I do think it has to feel good to get that second title underneath your belt, especially which, she said in press, she envisioned herself. She thought this would be the first one that she won, because she really likes the conditions in Paris. Getting 2 underneath your belt is just even better than getting 1. I think that just sets a really solid level of confidence that, you know what, when the tournament is big and the pressure's on, I know how to deliver because I've delivered in the past. So I think all things considered, that's good for her to kind of lean back on. And, she gets to, she's quietly into the Hall of Fame.
I definitely agree. And one thing, it was really nice to see really so many people rally around Coco, celebrate her win. And it was huge, especially for it being the first time also since, I believe, Venus and Serena, like 2 decades, that we had an American win multiple slams. So just further cementing herself and becoming a household name, I think will be huge. And especially within the Black community, they've really been rallying behind her and the outpouring of love and support. Both the Obamas supported her and tweeted at her. So it's awesome to see. And it's great for tennis to have her doing well, honestly. Now, transitioning to someone who is not having the best time at it right now is our finalist from Roland Garros, Aryna Sabalenka. She has been getting a lot of backlash. And I knew, like, first, like, I was watching her trophy ceremony speech, and I was a little bit off put by her saying on the stage, this is a horrible final for me. Like, that's not something you say. Like, in my opinion, on a
Especially if
stage.
you like won a set and you were out there for over 2.5 hours. It'd be different if Coco had like double bageled her. That would have made a
Yeah.
little bit more sense, but that
No,
was
it
a
was a
competitive
competitive
final.
match. It was a
Yeah.
competitive match, and that wasn't a good look. Like I was even saying, is like she probably should have smashed her racket and gotten all the anger out like she did against Madison Keys at the Australian Open final. Perhaps she didn't want to do this because she got backlash for that too, but it was nowhere near as much backlash as this. So if next time she loses a slam final, which it very well could happen, she needs
Not
to
next
probably
time.
she needs to probably do that. But I think her press conference comments really lit up. And I'm going to transition into this point later, but I think some of that was due to like Bleacher Report and their presence, because that press conference clip was from them and they have a big following and they blew it up. So I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But during the press conference comments, she was saying like, oh, it was more about me playing. She didn't play incredible. It was more about me playing poorly. And then another thing people didn't like was her saying that she thought that Iga likely would have won if Iga had beaten her in the semifinals. And looking back at the transcript, like I was thinking, well, maybe did anyone ask her about Iga, but it was very unprovoked, which was like, that really shows just how salty she was. And I understand, especially with it being such a close match and losing back-to-back finals that you've lost, not back-to-back, but losing a second final to the same player, it's going to be frustrating, but it's just not great optics right now. And I'm going to like, especially saying it too, of her saying this about Coco being a Black woman too. And right now she is public enemy number one of the Black community. She might not have gotten the same backlash if she said this about a white player, but then again, I don't think she has as much respect about Coco's game. I'm not going to say it's like explicitly racist, like because it could have some racist undertones under it for sure. But I think some of it was Coco's game style, and Coco still doesn't have a lot of people's respect, even though she has made tremendous improvements in her game. But it's been a sentiment among Sabalenka's fans, and of course now Sabalenka herself, that Arena gifted Gauff the U.S. Open and now this, and that's truly what she feels.
It's very obvious that Sabalenka was salty. I even put on one of my Instagram stories, salty Sabs. And from my perspective, I don't mind a little bit of salt from a loser. Personally, I like my food seasoned. Clearly, I don't mind a little bit of salt. Now there is a limit to how much salt you can have, and I feel like Sabalenka kind of overdid it. But I'm not upset at the fact that she was upset. I'd rather her be honest than kind of feign that it didn't matter to her, or that it wasn't that big of a deal. She's gotten to this point in her career by being pretty authentically herself, showing us the ups and the downs and the screaming and the all of that, which I can appreciate to a certain extent. But you do have to step into a little bit, especially after a Grand Slam final, the one that she was just in, that was clearly there. Sometimes as an athlete, maybe she didn't feel this, but it was easy to see as a spectator. The energy around that final was just special, and you don't want to mar or like bring the level of that special down by being salty and kind of unsportsmanlike in the press conference. And she did it from a couple different angles, like mentioning Iga when nobody else did, like you said. She also said that Coco basically shanked all her shots. It just wasn't a good look. And I don't necessarily want to put racism on top of it, because I do believe, I don't want anybody to be like, Myles, you're afraid to like call it what it is. I believe in I've seen overt racism and covert racism. So there may be a layer to it. And I also think that the people that we call locals, that are like not necessarily watching. I don't know why we call them locals. Shouldn't we be locals? Because we like
That's a good point.
we're locally the tennis people that watch every week, but neither here nor there. They see a lot of the framework of what was bigged up 20 years ago in the Sharapova and Serena Williams rivalry. Because if you're a local, you don't really know that much about women's tennis, but you know the ins and outs, or somewhat, of that Serena and Sharapova rivalry. You have another Belarusian woman and an American Black woman, and you can kind of see how that framework of that situation fits into this situation. So I think there's people that are still salty about that, especially if they're Serena fans in the Black community. There's definitely some of that going on. I honestly can't believe that Sabalenka is getting whacked as much as she is. Like I
Yeah.
tweeted about it. Every time I refresh the social media page, it's like a new Sabalenka whack. It's a new journalist. It's a new pundit. It's a new content creator talking about this incident. And I do think Sabalenka's comments crossed a line. They were just very overtly salty, and they weren't sportsmanlike at all. They were rude. They were rude to somebody that not only had just beaten her, but had beaten her 2 years prior. Like, their rivalry isn't necessarily a Serena Sharapova. Sabalenka doesn't own Coco. Like, the head-to-head, I believe now is 6-5. So there's true tension and a back and forth when they play each other. I just would have liked to see Sabalenka give more respect in that moment. And I don't know if she needs a PR refresher, or somebody in her camp could have been like, hey girl, instead of going from the shower, I don't think an hour had passed before we got like the transcripts between like match point and the trophy ceremony to like when she was in that press. An hour may have passed, but definitely not two. I wish you would have kind of taken a moment to kind of realize the good things that she had done by getting to that final, the things she could have improved on, because she's not wrong. If she doesn't have 70 unforced errors, that match might look different. The result might look different. It just came off like sour grapes, and you would have wanted, tennis is all about being gentlemanly and all that stuff, which I don't necessarily subscribe the most to. But in that moment, when somebody has beaten you fair and square, and all of those good things that happened in that match, it just wasn't a good look to come out and be like, well, she didn't really do that much. She just scoffed at her, and she tried to do damage control. But once it's out there, once TNT has spread it, it's
Yeah.
that's a wrap. So I
Right.
feel for her. I feel for her because she's in a weird position. And I before this moment, I personally had never had I don't like Sabalenka moment. But unfortunately, the people that have those moments, especially kind of like, below the surface, this is all they needed to be like, oh, I can't
Mhm.
stand her. Because that's a lot of my personal inbox has been like, oh, she was cool, I guess, but now I can't stand her after this press conference. So not a good couple of days for Sabalenka fans and Sabalenka herself.
Now, I saw an interesting tweet because, again, like I guess the locals they've been pushing it a little bit too much, in my opinion.
It's a
Like,
lot. It's a
with
lot.
the name calling, like, it was bad. There was one tweet that said Coco Gauff is bringing the worst people to tennis. I said it.
When are we gonna start ignoring those people, Christian?
I still want to talk about the tweet because I think it's an interesting tweet. I don't agree with it,
Yeah.
but I think that it is true that Coco has brought in a new type of tennis, not tennis audience, but new type of audience. Let's be
Hmm.
frank. More Black people are tuned into the sport. Not as many of these fans are in tune with the intricacies of it. And we have seen, like, I guess, tweets, for example, even like Coco talking about drowning out the crowd with the Lois Basson, and they took it and ran and made it seem like it was like the whole Sabalenka thing. At least for Sabalenka's sake, I hope that they don't face off in another slam final. There have been some just bad takes. And I even saw
Hmm.
that you caught a stray because someone accused you of being white. I saw that tweet.
This is what I'm talking about on Twitter. I was like,
Right.
like
Like
you could
they're
like I post videos, I post content. I don't
right.
think my teeth are white. If you're a competitive athlete, and I know how I was when I was an athlete and I was really wanting to win. I mean, hell, I want to win Uno games now. You probably wouldn't want to put a mic to my face and ask me how I feel 10 seconds after I just lost. So I'm willing to give you grace that you won't have a great perspective. So when people were like peeping her saltiness at the trophy presentation, I was willing to give it a slide. But when she doubled down on it, I had to go back and be like, all right, Sabalenka, you were like, I'm taking a little bit of the grace
Right.
away.
I
Just
saw
a,
that
just
too.
a, just
Yeah.
a, just a little bit of the grace. Because I got to be honest, like once I saw the whole thing transpire, it was like, come on, Sam. It was like, Coco is not some new rival for you. Like, you have to be honest that you didn't play your best, but she also took advantage of the fact that you didn't, and she played better than you in the crucial moments. Like, and she's been in Grand Slam finals before, so all of this capitulation that she does, which she did capitulate at very integral parts of that match, it's like it's on her. But when do you find the line between being like, it's not like I played a computer out there, like I have to give respect? I don't know. Maybe she doesn't give a flying F about any of this, and she really is drowning herself in tequila and gummy bears.
Maybe if she does well at Wimbledon, like maybe it'll like her results will blow over. But I do think like the U.S. crowd night session, they're not going to be the biggest fans. Finding the silver lining, I think this can be a learning lesson for her because this is not the first time she's made salty comments. I even pulled a quote that she said about Mira after she lost their Indian Wells final, and she said, "Honestly, it was me against me. I mean, I made a lot of unforced errors on important points, and I just let her play a little bit better. At the beginning, everything was going straight forward, and then I made a couple mistakes." She kind of believed in herself. After that, I started playing much worse, and I was trying to find my rhythm back, but it didn't work this time. Even aside from that, the way she talked about her Madison Keys loss, like talking like she played horribly, where yes, she didn't play her best tennis in the first set, but credit has to be given to Keys. So I think bottom line, she's got to work on being a little bit more gracious in defeat and biting her tongue. But I mean, I feel like now she might be quote unquote faker. I think there should
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
good balance. Though. Be a good
She,
balance
I
because,
mean,
like you said, we should have more of this authenticity from our athletes because we always say we want real athletes. We want you to be real, but then when they're, I mean, this was again maybe crossing the line, but when they're like real, it like all hell breaks loose. So I think there needs to be some type of dialing it back on her end. But yeah,
it's
to
because
her own credit.
she's not necessarily wrong because the power and game she possesses, it is on her racket most of the time. So if she comes away from that match feeling like, well, if I would have played better, I would have won, you're not technically wrong. But I don't know. Maybe she should just lean into being salty Sabs. Maybe she should change her Instagram name to that. That it has a ring to it.
Maybe she plays into being the villain a little bit more because from her vibes, like she seems to try to be like likable on TikTok and stuff. But like
Atmosphere.
yeah, the atmosphere and support. But like the TikTok comments are not on her side, so maybe she can become Novak. I mean, her and Novak are pretty buddy anyway, so maybe she can get some notes from her mentor and embrace this because
Not mentor.
it's not going to be good. But anyways, moving on from Sabalenka and Gauff. Congratulations again to Coco on an incredible win. You have to discuss the men's final, which it broke the internet, and rightfully so. 5.5 hour match. Alcaraz saved 3 championship points to defeat Jannik Sinner in a 5-set thriller, the longest Roland Garros final of all time, second longest men's slam final. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Myles, on it as far as the finals that you have seen and the matches? Where do you feel like it ranks for you?
It's up there, especially when you factor in the fact that Jannik Sinner had 3 match points consecutively, and Alcaraz really kind of bigged up, and it wasn't so much as Sinner like flubbing them, it was Alcaraz saving them. It was really something to witness how Alcaraz has that level that Sinner just hasn't been able to develop in his game. It's only a couple of percentage points. It's not like Sinner just completely is blown away, but you can kind of see where Alcaraz presses the turbo boost button and Sinner just can't keep up with it, especially if Alcaraz is able to keep that turbo boost level pretty consistent for a while, which he did in those last 3 sets. It's gonna be one that I probably won't watch in its entirety. I don't care if the French Open uploads it on YouTube from the first ball to the last ball. I personally am not giving them 5.5 hours of my life again. I didn't even give it to them the first time. Like I had to watch bits and pieces of that because
Right.
I'm sure we'll get into it about like the 5-set debate. I do think there's space for best of 5 tennis, and this match showcased the best of it, but it's not always like that. I do think this will be something, it'll be a match that when it's all said and done, it'll be like, remember our first Grand Slam final we played? Like that'll be something, hopefully if they keep a good camaraderie between each other, it'll be something that they kind of talk about, and tennis fans that were there in the stands and watched can say they remember where they were when they watched this. So it was pretty incredible, and yeah, I think it's exactly what this new era of tennis needed to kind of really hammer home the fact that the big 3/4 are gone, and this is the new 2 that Jim Courier has called it.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about how obviously it was so close to where he had multiple match points, but I think the gap between them, especially in their matches, is still pretty thin. Even the Rome final, which Alcaraz won in straight sets, Sinner had 2 set points, I believe, in that first set. So I'm not saying he would have won it, but still it could have been more competitive. But I kind of have maybe a controversial take. But I think, obviously, despite this, and maybe despite the mental block that Yannick might have in regards to facing Carlos. I think that ultimately when it's said and done, Sinner might walk away having more slams. And I say this because, like, even the statistic of Yannick being 91-3 against the rest of the field since the start of 2024, not against people not named Alcaraz. Of course, against Alcaraz, he's been 0-5 since the start of 2024. But I just think he has ability to just beat every single person. Like, it seems like no one really troubles him that much. With Alcaraz, he's more susceptible to these more surprising losses. I mean, he's still obviously very young. We don't know. He could very well build the consistency to go deep in all the slams and most of the 1000s, but especially the 1000s that aren't clay, he hasn't had the best results. So I do think when it's all said and done, I mean, it's still early, and Yannick still is low-key a little bit injury/illness prone, but I think he might walk away with more accolades, or at least the more slam titles or something when it's said and done. But I'm curious to hear what you think.
I get what you mean, because Sinner is able to bring a day in, day out, week in, week out, surface to surface intensity, focus, and base level that is able to beat most of everybody he plays. If he loses, especially based on what he's shown us since he won his first slam in 2023, if he loses, kind of similar to what we were saying about Sabalenka, it's based off of his level or his opponent just playing an astronomically high level that they ordinarily don't play. Whereas Carlos, I guess the best way to say it is Carlos can play with his food a lot easier than Yannick Sinner does, unless Carlos is facing Yannick Sinner. I think Carlos knows that he cannot do and cannot get away with playing with his food, per se, when Yannick Sinner's across the net, because Yannick will make him pay for it, whereas Yannick is not interested in playing with his food at all, regardless of who is across the net. It doesn't matter if you're 81 in the world, 18, or 2, he's going to likely bring his best foot forward, and that's what he showcased in 2023, 2024, and 2025 now, outside of that little gap he took. I see your point. Because of that all the things that we just said about Sinner, he may end up with a couple more slams, but I don't know. There's a lot of roadway for both of them in their careers. They may be playing well into 2030s, if health is on their side, which I hope it is, but we don't know who else is going to kind of get in between that rivalry, the same way that Roger and Rafa were very comfortable until Novak kind of came around and really was elite at the slam level. We don't know who that could be. Could it be Draper? Could it be somebody like Fonseca? Could it be Arthur Feeks? We don't know, but as it stands right now, I see your point about Sinner maybe edging Alcaraz out because of the consistent base level. But Alcaraz, as far as I'm concerned, is the more energetic and turbo boost ability kind of player. Sinner has sustained turbo boost, but Alcaraz has ability to kind of tap into it when he really, really needs to, and he does his best impersonation or version of that against Yannick Sinner. So that's why that rivalry will always be special, I think.
Now transitioning to talking about, again, a hotly debated topic, best of five. I know the best of five defenders they're intense. I need to pull up this tweet. Paraphrasing, she was basically saying like, oh, this is why like women's tennis doesn't necessarily have those like moments because it's best of three and not best of five and stuff like that. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I feel personally like while the match was entertaining and compelling, it was long. It was so long. It was better for sure than last year's final, but I remember watching last year's final, like it was a drag. Even though it was Carlos Alcaraz, Alexander Zverev was on the other side of the net, and he does not have the most appealing tennis. 9 times out of 10, these 5-set matches really aren't all that, and they're so long.
Tomato to everybody that thinks best of five is good just because of the length. That's not true. I know you can say that everybody lives in this microwavable society and they want things quicker, but in sports, why wouldn't you want tension as quick as you can get it? That's what best of three provides you. There's something to be said for raising the stakes and raising the drama at a Grand Slam because it's the pinnacle of our sport. So I'm not necessarily in favor of getting rid of best of five, but in that final that Carlos and Yannick played, that was exemplary. How many best of five finals have we seen that were played over? I mean, matter of fact, the Australian final between Zverev and Sinner, what diehard tennis fan and definitely what casual is going to go back and replay that and say, darn, that was a good one. Like that was a best of five match that was a dud, basically. So a lot of them kind of fall in that dud category than they're doing the all-time classic. But when you get an all-time classic, everybody's quick to say, well, that's why we need best of five. I would be completely okay with the hybrid format because every single men's match at a major, all 7 rounds being best of 5 is. I don't want to say it's a snooze fest, but absolutely some of them are snooze fest.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that you remember the best of 5 match that went all 5 sets in the second round. Who do you remember any?
I do, but I understand you.
Oh, well,
But,
I'm asking Christian's court, so of course you do. But like the average person is not going to go back
yeah,
and
they're
rewatch
not.
that. So I think there needs to be a happy medium, like just how they found a happy medium with the 10-point tiebreak.
Mm-hmm.
They can do the same thing. I feel like tennis is in an age where they're trying different things or trying to be more flexible while also trying to hold to tradition, and a hybrid schedule of like, okay, quarterfinals and on or 4th round on, we do best of 5 for everybody because obviously there's less players in the draw, or we do best of 3 all the way around.
I feel personally that's why I kind of enjoy women's tennis more than men's tennis, because it's not as an enjoyable watch for me to watch best of 5. It's just not for me. I don't know, people might burn me at the stake for that, but I mean, people have different strokes for different folks. People, you like it. And I remember asking like Davidovich Fokina and Del Rey, who I think he had like 2 or 3 consecutive 5-set matches or something. And then by the end of it, when he played Tommy Paul, I believe in the 4th round, he was gassed. And I said, like, what are your thoughts on the best of 5? Like, and he was like, I love it. Like, yeah. So I mean, I don't think it's going to
It's
go
a macho
anywhere.
thing for them too.
It is. It definitely
Yeah.
is. It definitely is that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean,
It doesn't have to go anywhere. It just needs to be curtailed for where we are in society,
I
like where
agree,
we are
especially with
with
people's attention spans, like
TV
limiting even
contracts,
more and more.
all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you made a good point earlier about how best of 5, it has an impact on the issue with the night matches, especially at Roland Garros, as once again we have not had a night match at all this year, and I believe the last night match, Sloane and
2023 with Sloane and
Sabalenka,
Sabalenka,
which has been like, so it's been 2 years, which is
2
crazy.
years.
And the FFT president, Gilles Morton, he said the reason why they don't put women's matches as the night session is to put the better match for the spectators at night. And you had Ange Jabeur, she spoke out against it. She wrote a great letter, extensive letter on Twitter or X. Aryna Sabalenka, she said that she thinks women's matches should be spotlighted in prime time. Iga Swiatek, as you know, basically she said she didn't care.
No, she prefers to play it in the day, which was great. Awesome feedback.
And then Coco Gauff, she suggested that the night session be 2 matches, but Amelie Mauresmo, she shut that down. And Roland Garros, what they do 3-day matches, 1 evening match, while the Australian Open and US Open, they do 2-day matches, 2 night matches. I think Wimbledon might do just 3 on center court. I don't know. And then I think Mauresmo, reading off a statement, she said the playtime is also taken into consideration, obviously because we cannot plan ahead, be it for women's tennis or men's tennis. But we have to take into consideration the 15,000 spectators coming in for the night session. Since men's tennis is played at the best of 5 sets, 3 sets will be played at a minimum. It's complicated for us to do otherwise. Myles, I know you have plenty of thoughts about this, and I want to hear them.
The best thing about that Mauresmo press conference was definitely her hair. That was it. Everything out of her mouth was just kind of redundant. And she even said it. She was like, you guys are asking the same questions every year. Well, you're giving us the platform and reasoning to ask them because it's now 2 years in a row that you haven't showcased a night match for women or put a women's match in that evening slot. And your excuse is always that the men's matches are going to give you 3 sets at minimum. Well, what about the men that retire, like Lorenzo Musetti? No shade, but he retires sometimes. What about the blowouts of Sinner beating Gasquet in under an hour, losing 4 games altogether? Like, is that your metric? Because I actually cannot think of any primetime men's matches that happened this tournament that were just like blowing my mind. I really can't come to think of any. Can you?
Yes, I can. I can.
Please, please. Who are they?
I think Monfils, both of Monfils' matches, I think. Monfils' comeback win, that was a great spectacle in the first round. I know I almost forgot about that. But also his match against Jack Draper was really good. I think while it was straight sets, Djokovic Sinner was also good. And I guess playing devil's advocate, while I know you mentioned like the Sinner blowouts, those were 2 hours. So I understand where Amelie might be coming from, where even if you have a blowout, like you're going to get an extra set of tennis and you're going to get, that's about at least 30 more minutes of tennis. I still don't agree with with what she's doing because it's not good optics. It's not good optics. And a few people have said, like, if you're only going for the night match or night session stuff, you wouldn't even know a women's tennis goes on, especially for Chatrier.
Who wants to come to an evening blowout that's 2 hours in Paris when you can kind of stay for an evening blowout for a women's match that might be an hour and 15? You can go after and eat croissants and wine and cheese or whatever. Like, why would you, who's staying if it is a blowout just because it is 3 sets guaranteed? Who's staying to watch Sinner and Alcaraz and Draper whack somebody 6-2 in the third set? I personally wouldn't be I mean, for my job I would stay there, but like as a spectator, if I already see how this match is going and I'm like visiting Paris or I have work the next day, I'm deucing out. So that's a seat that's going to be empty anyway. And I just don't think from a woman in Amelie's position who has her job because of what she did on the WTA tour, it's not a great look and not great messaging for her to now be in this position of scheduling power to basically keep undermining the women. I don't think that's a good look at all. And when it's put to her, she doesn't really have a true answer for it. She always goes back to, well, I'm not the only one making the decisions. Well, you're the person sitting here at the press conference, so your opinion, you speak for the majority. And if your opinion is one of the ones that people take the most seriously, evidently you're not really giving it a really good go for the women. You're just not, especially now that we're looking at 4 matches in 5 years. There's been 4 women's matches in 5 years since they started the primetime slot scheduling that have gotten that shine. It's just not. It's not a coincidence. It's not just like it's purposeful, you know. And then for Alizé Cornet and Ostapenko to be one of the matches, it's like, oh, y'all just picking out of a bucket.
I'm curious to know whether or not anything will change, or whether they're just hoping that this eventually they're going to wear the press and reporters down so that way they don't speak about it. That's what I think is going to be the case. Like, they're just going to like continue to not put the woman on because they said they're not going to do 2 night matches. They're only going to stick to just one. So I feel like that's truly what it's going to be. Do you feel like there'll be any change at all for the next few years, or no?
No. I mean, when I spoke to Lindsay Davenport and brought up the same thing, she was like, she's been covering the event for a long time. And unfortunately, that's just the culture there in France. Like and it's not even just the prime time slot. They consistently put the women at the 11 a.m. Philippe Chatrier spot when they know people are lunching and brunching and whatever, and those seats are empty. So like they continuously kind of set up this narrative that, yes, it's a women's singles and men's singles tournament. We know it's a Grand Slam, but we're going to put those women out there, get it over with, and then the real fun is going to start with the men. And it's like half of those men's matches are not even that great. I literally take naps. So I literally take naps. They just need to do a better job of scheduling it equally, because women's tennis is always going to lose if they say, well, nobody watches it. How can people watch it if you don't put it in a predicament or a slot that makes it more advantageous to watch? You're always going to have that losing battle. You're always going to say, well, women's doesn't make as much ad on television. Well, you don't put them in the best primetime slots on television, so how could they make ad money? They're just never setting themselves up to have women's tennis be as bright and wonderful as you and I know it is for the rest of the world.
I agree. You make a great point about how it was intentional with the scheduling, putting them back to back. The women's matches that they did that with, they were honestly on paper more compelling than the men's matches. So for them to not even space it out, like you said, and like Lindsay said, it's a culture. And I remember back in 2019, I believe it was rainy that year or something, they had the women's semifinals. Neither of them were on Chatrier. One of them between Konta and Vondrousova, they put them on Simone Mathieu. And yes, Konta and Vondrousova are not the most compelling players, but it's still not a good look. Like that's just not a good look at all. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, hopefully the reporters keep up the good fight, and maybe that'll change something, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, they were the last Grand Slam to award equal prize money in like 2007, which is not even 20 years ago. So like, it's a cultural thing, and they look at it from like journalists and media people asking the questions as them just trying to make a story. But it's like, no, people are realizing what you're about, and there's a reason a lot of people kind of put Roland Garros at the bottom of the totem pole as far as slams, and that's one of the reasons for sure.
That's a great transition into our next topic. We talked about earlier how Roland Garros was actually good for you, like you enjoyed watching it this year, and I feel like some of that was due to the coverage and the rights changing as TNT took over from TNT and HBO Max took over coverage from, it was formerly Tennis Channel, Peacock and NBC. And those were some rough years because, like, you had to pay for a Peacock subscription to watch the night match. I absolutely hated it. And, you know, I'm cheap, so I don't, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But I feel like overall, it was so much better, especially with us having all the Americans having that success and going deep into the second week. It only did was a complement that success, having a proper like backing as far as the coverage, and not only from like TV and streaming, but of course you mentioned earlier Hasa highlights. That was huge. Bleacher Report, huge. As aforementioned, that is why a big part of why Sabalenka is public enemy number one, because they have such a huge following and people are actually watching their stuff. So I think for sure there were some things I didn't like about it. There's a few people I didn't really care for.
Name them.
Definitely didn't care for definitely did not care for the Mac Zone. I absolutely hated the
Yeah,
Mac
that
Zone.
was the worst part. Yeah.
The Mac Zone was terrible.
That was awful.
They went on these weird tangents and they kept having this AI art. It was so strange. Absolutely could not stand the Mac Zone.
We can do away with the McEnroe family altogether in tennis.
Yeah,
like
but they really do have a chokehold on the locals because there are people that really go up for them.
I'll never understand it.
Yeah, but didn't care for that. But for sure, the highlight for me was the Venus Sloan and Coco interview. That was really, an iconic moment for sure. But yeah, and of course, having the likes of Jim Courier, Chris Eubanks. I don't know how I feel about Agassi, honestly speaking.
I feel like he was a little awkward, and I give him grace, as I said before, because that was like his first real big commentating spot, and he did it like when the tournament was at its almost apex. So I'll give him some leeway. Hopefully, if he keeps doing it, he'll get better. But it was a little choppy and awkward. But I mean, it's not like he's a regular like touring commentator, So maybe he'll get his feet more with it in the next couple of tournaments or something.
Floor is yours. What were your thoughts on the coverage this year?
I really enjoyed it. The fact that they were able to put tennis on a linear cable channel that pretty much everybody has access to in TNT and keep it there for large chunks of the day said a lot. I mean, the numbers that they just got back, I haven't read through all of them, but everybody says that they've been impressive. And not only did they tap into people that are at home or what have you and clicking through their channel and being like, oh, I watch TNT all the time. Oh, what's this? It's Roland Garros. Let's sit and watch and actually be entertained. They also tapped into a large amount of people who are into streaming. I don't know, again, the numbers not in front of me. It's more of a culture and like a vibe thing. But if you don't have Netflix or Hulu, you probably have HBO Max. That's one of the ones that people aren't deleting and they're okay with subscribing to. And sometimes people even get HBO Max for free with their cable subscription, like AT&T, DirecTV or something like that. So to tap into those audiences and kind of get people that ordinarily wouldn't go out of their way to watch tennis to kind of have tennis be sat in front of them was humongous. And I think that is my biggest takeaway. They need to kind of put the Grand Slams the same way, like they need to put the Grand Slams in our social algorithms the same way the other big events from other big sports do. Like, I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not a huge basketball fan. I'm not a huge football fan. I know what goes on in those sports, kind of. But when the Super Bowl is happening, when the NBA Finals is happening, when the World Series is happening, even if I'm not looking for the information, I see it. As with tennis, if this same Roland Garros would have happened with Tennis Channel's coverage, no shade. I think Tennis Channel does some great things, but access and broadcasting to the masses is not necessarily their strong point. They don't have the reach. Whereas with TNT and Max's coverage, when you get on Threads, when you get on X, when you get on Instagram, whether you are a tennis fan or not, one of the biggest tennis tournaments on the calendar that happens yearly is happening. And that's how it should be.
So aside from them hiring us to be a part of their team next year, what is something that you think can be improved or some things you didn't necessarily care for aside from the aforementioned?
Just hiring us. No. They need to bring back Sloane Stephens. When I talked to Lindsay Davenport, she exclusively mentioned Sloane Stephens as somebody new that she enjoyed working with. She was great. I feel like she didn't really come in. Lindsay Davenport also said this. She didn't come in with a whole bunch of like a long rap sheet of of television experience, but she just kind of has it. She got her glam team together. She got her wardrobe together and made sure that she looked the part of an engaging millennial tennis broadcaster and pundit, and she made you, even if you didn't know what was going on, if you just cared about hair, makeup, and jewelry, you were turning on your socials and your television to see what Sloane had on. Then you back that up with another like Millennial Voices and Chris Eubanks, who has actual information of playing on the tour while also being a part-time analyst. Sam Querrey, who retired not that long ago. Coco Vandeweghe,
our favorite.
yes. Jim Courier, who's classic and is a very like tennis pundit, and then Caroline Wozniacki. Like Wozniacki kind of bridged the gap between not just an American-centric audience. She spoke to people that, you know, or maybe weren't necessarily born in America like she wasn't. I mean, outside of them hiring us to kind of be on the grounds with our mics and be, you know, in the on the boots on the ground with it, Dave set the bar really, really high. And in a couple of weeks, when ESPN is ready to stream that Wimbledon, I don't know what we're gonna get.
It's the same rotation. They never do anything new.
And again, not all of them are bad. Because I mean, like, I don't want this to be like clipped up and be like, oh my God, Myles thinks ESPN is terrible. I don't think it's terrible, but you can clearly see a difference between what TNT and HBO Max just did and what ESPN and ESPN Plus does to tennis. Like, it's just night and day.
So kind of talking about the players more specifically, what are some of your most impressive players? And then we can start with most impressive players. Yeah, most impressive players from Roland Garros to really like surprise you.
I know he didn't finish the tournament, but Arthur Feast impressed me. His ability, Sloane, speaking of Sloane, how we just did, she made a statement that really resonated with me about how his persona in the locker room is probably going to change a little bit by his ability to keep pushing in that second round match, even though he really could have gave a withdrawal or retirement rather. I hope his back is okay. Hopefully, you know, health and youth is on his side and it works out for him and we see him sooner rather than later. I'm a little concerned about that, but he impressed me. Victoria Mboko, man, I am so here for the Mboko train. I feel privileged to be able to say that I watched her get her first WTA Tour level win in Miami and speak to her right after that. So that's something I'll definitely hold tight for me. And then for her to qualify, play her first main draw, and get all the way to the third round, that's definitely special. She just kind of has that effervescence that I think tennis is going to be better for. I don't know, who impressed you? Maybe that'll jog my memory.
For me, two Americans, Francis Tiafoe. Yes, his draw wasn't the hardest, but I was still impressed by his tennis that he showed, not losing a set en route to the quarterfinals. That match against Musetti was still competitive. It had some controversy behind that because Musetti, he had been playing so well. And for Francis to push him, really, it could have gone 5, but I think he did. At least he'll quiet. I don't know if he fully beat the allegations, but I think he'll quiet the only plays well during the U.S. hardcourt swing and Houston allegations. I think they'll quiet.
Sorry,
they'll quiet definitely a little bit more for sure. Because they were strong. They were beating him a little bit. I'm not necessarily surprised that he made it through because his draw was very favorable, especially with Fritz losing. And then another guy is Ben Shelton. He lost to the eventual champion in the 4th round. And Ben, we all know that clay is not his best surface, but for him to push Alcaraz like that proves that he will win a slam one day. I think for sure he will.
You putting that on wax?
I'm putting it on.
Win one? Okay.
I'm putting it. I am saying that for sure because when you look at it, he elevates for the slams. Like he's born for this type of stage. And he's already made semifinals US Open, semifinals Australian Open this year. And when he did, yes, it was a straight sets loss to the eventual champion Sinner, but he had set points against Sinner. And he was already tired from playing tough matches coming into this one. So that big signs for that. And again, for him to not play as well, I think he's figuring it out a little bit more, having more success, making the Munich finals. Didn't perform as well in Rome, Madrid, but he wasn't feeling as well in Madrid, so I'll give him a little bit of a pass there. But if he can hone in a little bit more of the game, he has the serve, he has the athleticism, he has the moxie, as Oracene would say. I think he will win a slam.
I am not going to go out on a limb and say all of that because I think there's this weird, strange curse happening for American men because it's not just a happenstance that they haven't won a single major in over 20 years. Somebody has to break it. I just don't know who, but I definitely see your point that Ben Shelton is getting better. His match against Alcaraz was a great example of that. I feel like every time I see him, he gets 1 or 2 percentage points better, especially on a surface like clay, which can expose your movement, it can expose your rally tolerance, and those are things that he has had to get better as he's become better and more professional. So yeah, I think he likes the Grand Slam stage, and yeah, I would say he impressed me as well. Musetti did too. Musetti impressed me as well. Semifinals at or better at every single clay court tournament that he played. That's majorly impressive. Unfortunately, that's like his second or third time retiring on Philippe Chatrier, so that's not good. But he still impressed me.
I say Haley Baptiste, of course, Lois Poisson. We don't have to go into much about her because she's already received so much coverage, a huge run to the semifinals.
Oh wait, can I ask you a question about her?
Yeah.
Is she or is she not reheating Maria Sakkari's nachos?
She is definitely, I think, both Sakkari and Stoscher's nachos, I'd say.
Okay.
I'll say Stoscher because, like, she does have the variety that Maria doesn't necessarily have as far as, like, you know, the slicing and her ability to come, her better net coverage, but for sure she does remind me of Sakkari as far as her game, the aesthetic.
They look alike too. Yeah, the arms, the biceps, like beat me up in the alley. Yeah.
Where do you see her career going? I know we haven't seen much from her, but do you think she can be a consistent fixture at the top level of the sport?
Probably better than Harriet Dart's career. So there's that. If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
But Haley Baptiste, very proud of her.
I was about to say her. Yeah, Haley Baptiste for sure.
What do you think her career? I mean, because I think she's at her career high 58, I believe.
Yes,
what I saw on
yes,
social.
she is.
She has. It's not surprising to me that she's like really good friends with Frances Tiafoe, because I think they have a little bit of that same energy. They have all the shots that can kind of make tennis courts feel like their playground, but putting it all together when it matters most, when the pressure's on and closing out matches, is something that they could get better at. So hopefully if she keeps putting herself in situations like she did, getting to the 4th round of Roland Garros, it won't be so surprising that she's there, because I think she has a game that can bother a lot of the girls. And I think that her fitness and stamina has gotten a little incremental better as well. Just something I've noticed. I've just seen her get in and out of corners just a little bit better, and just her physique looks better. So I'm hoping that she continues that momentum and keeps it going.
I feel like she can have. I mean, her game is similar, but she kind of reminds me of Ons Jabeur a little bit. And I'm wondering if she has a similar trajectory. I feel like she is building to that trajectory of Ons. She kind of started to hit her stride in her mid to late 20s. I think Haley is 23 years old right now, 23, 24. So she has the game style. I think it's more or less racking up more and more confidence because the results are starting to come too. So for sure, she proved that she belongs at the top level.
Is Ons cooked?
Yes.
Oh.
Now, speaking of that, biggest disappointment of the tournament, I'd say for sure Taylor Fritz. I don't know what that was against Daniel Altmaier. I understand he hasn't really been having a good season at all, aside from Miami semifinals. So tough luck for him. It'll be a good season if he ends top 8. Honestly speaking. Also, disappointment, Alex de Minaur. I mean, he lost to Bublik. He had 2 sets to love up against him. I had him making the quarterfinals, and he had somewhat of a solid clay season. So he will definitely be disappointed with that result. Francisco Cerundolo, he'll be disappointed.
Yeah, super disappointed.
He lost. He did lose to Diallo.
Your twin one.
Yeah. I need to interview him and ask him, like, hey,
and stand side by side.
Right. But a good one from Diallo for sure. That's not a terrible loss from him, but I had him going deep and beating Zverev actually. But that was a disappointing result for him.
For sure.
I think the biggest one, Peyton Stearns, she shouldn't have lost 3-0 to Eva Lees. I understand she just came off the Rome. It was tough, but 3-0 is ridiculous. But on that note, another fellow Wilson athlete who lost round 1, Marta Kostyuk, a huge disappointment, very big disappointment for her to lose like that in round 1 to Sarah Bejlek.
Emma Navarro lost.
Oh, yes,
that was one.
Yes, huge disappointment.
I know Mary Jo Fernandez said on air while it was happening that she had watched Navarro kind of warm up and practice the days before, and something just didn't look right. I don't want to say that it was maybe that time of the month from her, but odds are it might have been. You know, we don't even bring that up a lot for these women athletes, but it's just a factor. So maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not putting that on her, but if it is, it's just part of life. But that was disappointing because I think that she's an all court and all surface player. Actually, that whole 25 and over ATP group Fritz, Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Rublev, and Rude, disappointing. None of them, I'd be shocked. And Zverev made the semis? Quarters. We can lump him in there too. I don't know if any of them are winning a slam. Not a single one. Like, and all of them have made slam finals. I mean, Medvedev got his one, so I'll say that. But like, Medvedev doesn't seem like he's going to get better. Rude won Madrid. That might be his career highlight, respectfully. Rublev hasn't even gotten to a semifinal. Fritz doesn't look like his game is really all that penetrating against like the really top players, and even some of the not so top players. They can handle his pace. And then Zverev is just Zverev. So all those guys need to start scratching their head about what they're going to do to stop Sinner and Alcaraz from winning 8 more Grand Slams in a row.
Rounding this one out and moving on, now we're on to the grass season, which is crazy now that Wimbledon will start in less than 3 weeks now. But are there any players you think will perform well or maybe surprise us? Not even surprise us, but just do well for the grass season?
I would love to see Ben Shelton keep it up. That his consistency from the ground and smart serving. Actually, I think he can kind of go back to what he did when we first met him, which is big serving. Because I think he's really dialed it back and been a smarter server. But I think he could actually hybrid it a little bit and serve big and smart during the grass court season. Because I mean, if you just bomb it down the middle or bomb it into the body, it's going to yield more dividends than it would on any other surface. So I'm hoping he can kind of find his footing on grass. It'll be nice to see where Mboko kind of, finds her footing on grass, because she's won so many matches on all kind of surfaces at all kind of levels. So I don't think any of that was on grass. So we'll see what happens. And then Patrick Mouratoglou's charge, Naomi Osaka. I want grass to be advantageous for her. I just don't know if it's going to be. Yeah, it should be. But I don't know. Grass is so tricky. It's just so tricky. But I do think that it's not as tricky as it used to be. So I think some of the names that we saw go deep at Roland Garros will be likely some of the names we see in the second week of Wimbledon and picking up those titles. But you never know. I'm here for like a Great Britain surprise story in the grass season for sure. Like, what if Katie Bolter does something special?
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Speaking of Brits, someone who might have a better chance of doing something. I mean, Katie definitely can. Yeah, she can. That was me. I was thinking of Jack Draper for sure, but also Emerald Kanu. I think she can. I think she has shown good form, somewhat good form. She made Miami quarterfinals, so I think this could be where she maybe cracks back inside the top 30 or higher.
Perry card.
Yeah, Giovanni Pecci Perry card.
He has fourth round points to defend, but he won't have to qualify again this year. So
that's true. Yeah, that is true. He hasn't had necessarily the best season. Nothing really stands out to me, to be honest. So I think he is due for this because, like you said, he has fourth round points coming off, and then those Basel points coming off too. So this will be an important stretch for him, definitely. Thinking of another woman, maybe Navarro can get it together. I mean, she has kind of I think Anisimova. Her game is good everywhere, I feel, but maybe the grass could suit her better, especially with her being more of a flatter hitter. And then I noticed you seem to have somewhat of a fondness towards the woman, but Jessica Pegula, I think she.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to say something shady. Pegula and I have come a long way.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marty Fish tweeted out that she should win Wimbledon, and I mean, she kind of should have won the one Vondrousova won
in 2023. Yeah, she really should have.
I just don't know because she lost to Beauchamp, and like I know clay isn't her surface, but like there's something that keeps stopping her from like I know she got to the U.S. Open final, but there's something that keeps stopping her from like really, really being a threat at these majors. I don't know, but I mean, she hits so consistently flat that it might be Wimbledon.
You know? I think you reminded me of one woman when you said, like, I thought you were going to say something shady. Elena Rybakina. I hope she has more success because she did show promising signs in her fourth round loss to Iga. I think Keys, she very well could win another slam for sure. I think Keys can.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Keys,
I think she really, if it weren't for that injury against Paolini, she could have I had her winning the title actually last year, so I think she can. Yeah, I guess
Andreeva,
that's
maybe, because Andreeva played a close match
Mhm.
against Keys one year, and she
She
has,
did.
she has nothing to lose on grass, really. So I mean,
Right.
honestly, that we have said, and it kind of juggles back and forth, like which slam is out in the open and up for everybody's to like do their big one at, because sometimes it's Australia, sometimes it's Wimbledon. It could be any one of them throughout the year, but Wimbledon the last couple of years with Vondrousova and Krejcikova and even Rybakina coming through and winning, I don't know who. I mean, we don't even have a good subset of run up of champions yet before Wimbledon. It could be anybody standing there on that last Saturday and Sunday. It could be anybody.
I think that rounds up our Roland Garros recap or roundup. Do you have any parting thoughts or anything else to get off your chest before we depart?
No, nothing besides the fact that I'm really proud of both of us for, putting our heads and our voices and stuff out there for the past 2 weeks for Roland Garros. You more so than me, because I have to get my YouTube and content game up.
And
But yeah,
you're sick too.
oh my God, I still feel it. But I'm trying to get my Serena in 2015 on and push through. But yeah, it was definitely one I'm going to remember. I'm just looking forward for more tennis content. I feel like Chris Eubanks said this on Threads, that just seeing people talk about tennis the way they did over the past 2 weeks, the amount of people that weren't necessarily following the sport, that watched that Sabalenka and Gauff final and watched that Sinner-Alcaraz final, that, brought those fun moments back to their friends or back to their coworkers. I think it means that tennis is in a really healthy spot and it's growing and people are getting reinvigorated, and it's not going to be all a lost cause just because Roger and Rafa and Serena are have left us and moved on from the sport. So I think there were definitely a bunch of encouraging signs.
Totally agree. Nothing really else to add except for I think Roland Garros 2026 has really big shoes to fill because, again, this was the best that we've had in a very, very long time. That's all I have for my Roland Garros recap. Let me know your thoughts on all the topics I covered, and make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I post. Still, I'm going to post my Roland Garros best and worst dress video. Better late than never. And again, thank you so much to Myles David for joining me for this great discussion. And if you all haven't already, make sure you follow him on all platforms. The link for his YouTube channel will be in the description. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. And I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.